Most of us probably could sort of, prescribe for you what a good conversation is composed of, but we find it difficult to follow. Can you just share with us a little bit about why that is?
So one thing that's really helpful to know is, and this is what's really interesting in the studies of neuroscience, is that threats to our ideas, threats to our beliefs, trigger the exact same survival drive as if we were being physically threatened. So what I'm going to do is just quickly share something. If there was one takeaway from this time together, this is going to be it. So this is what people are going to want to pay attention to. Okay, this is it. What I'd like you to do is join me in holding up your hand like this, okay? And if you look at your wrist coming up into the palm, the wrist is the spinal cord coming up into the base of the brain. And the base of the brain is your palm, right? So that is sometimes called the reptilian brain. It's the oldest part of the brain. And it's responsible for all our autonomic processes, such as breathing and heart rate and blood pressure. Takes care of all of those things that we don't have to think about, right? We don't have to remember to breathe, we just breathe. So we're very grateful for this reptilian brain right there. It's also the part of the brain that registers threats. So that's a really important thing to know. It registers threats, this very ancient part of the brain. So then you take your thumb and you cross it over across the palm. That represents your midbrain or your limbic system, sometimes called the feeling brain or the emotional brain. And when our survival drive is triggered, it's really the reptilian brain and the limbic system that are working together to create that fight, flight, freeze response that is typical of our survival drive. So you might be thinking now in a difficult conversation, what is fight, flight, freeze? Well, we fight by arguing to win, for example, that would be a fight. We would flee by avoiding the conversation altogether. You just don't want to have it. Or sometimes we freeze. Sometimes someone says something that just so stuns us. We just can't even believe they said what they just said. We actually can't muster any kind of response at all. So that is controlled by the lower part of our brain. So then you fold your fingers over the top, and the fingers represent your neocortex, the newest part of your brain. So the orientation is like this. This is the front of your head. The back of your hand is the back of your head. So what happens is that one of the functions of the neocortex is to actually monitor that fight, flee, freeze reaction and to attenuate it if it's inappropriately activated. But if our survival drive is triggered, we do something called, we flip our lid like this. And so we've actually lost the neural connection between the older part of our brain and the newer part of our brain. And we have lost the ability, to stay calm. We have lost the ability for reflective thought, for moral reasoning, for self-knowing awareness, even for intuition. All of that becomes lost to us when our survival drive is triggered. So one thing we want to be able to do is that we're in that state, is actually reconnect our brain so that we can be calm and we can be present.